Welcome back to Words with Dr. Whitaker, where we have our Back to School edition, and our special guest is Chair James Herndon of the school board at the City Schools of Decatur. Welcome, Chair Herndon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're excited for this conversation. So we'll just jump right in. How long have you been supporting the City Schools of Decatur? Not necessarily just in your role as chair of the board, but how long have you been with us?
My wife Mandy and I moved to Decatur in 2008. At that time, Glenwood Elementary was a 3-4-5 academy, and there was like a public meeting about whether it should stay that way. And I was like, I'm going to go there with a friend of mine to just see what it was. And then we had our first daughter in 2011, and she started in 2015, 2016. We never got off the wait list at College Heights. That was financially devastating.
Yes.
And then the Glenwood, and then have not left. So going on quite a few years now.
Quite a few years. So what drew you to being a member on the school board?
I think, service is part of my family background. You and I are both members of the Decatur Rotary.
Yes, we are.
My grandfather was always in Rotary, always active in stuff. And I was a teacher. I think I talk about that for 4 years right after graduate school, and loved being a high school teacher. I don't think I was very good at it, but thoroughly enjoyed it. And when we decided to have kids, one of the deals I made with my wife is all things education, school, those fall into me. We moved to Decatur for the schools. We moved because some of the teachers that I taught with in Fulton County came to Decatur to be teachers, and I had a job at Emory. So working at Emory, you want good public schools, you want an active community. Decatur is and was and remains the best name in the game. And so I just got active with PTA and other stuff, and started complaining to the school board about things and made friends with some of them. And when the previous representative stepped down, I said, I want to do this. I want to give back. If I'm going to fulfill that need to give, that need to improve the education system around me, I'm going to go where I'm called, and felt called, and here I find myself.
Wow, that's an awesome story. So you sit now as the chair of the board. Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about the priorities of the Board of Education and what your role is on the board.
Yeah, I kind of giggled when I read what are your priorities as chair, because I think part of being a chair for a board of 5 people is your own personal priorities do take a back seat, and it's something that I've thought about, because my obligation, I think, is to make sure the board is functioning and on task and doing a good job. My priorities are that the City Schools of Decatur is represented by a professional and amazing school board that does a good job of moving us forward, meeting our pillars that we're going to talk about, and strategy and all of that sort of stuff. On a personal level, that story of me being a teacher is one that I take personally as a board member. I was largely raised by a single mother who I went to 9 different elementary schools. It just was a lot as she moved and settled. And so I just have these fond memories of teachers going all the way back, all the way through my debate coach, Miss Dowdy, who I would not be who I was if they had not parented me and involved me. And so that is my priority, and it has been. I'm a realist. We can't snap our fingers and make the education profession perfect, but we should keep it at the front of our minds when we talk about retaining and taking care of the people who are responsible for educating our kids. When we make demands of them, that's what we need to do.
Awesome. So you've alluded to it, so let's jump right into it. We launched the strategic plan in spring of 2023, and that strategic plan is called All in Decatur. We've talked about it a lot on this podcast, but I look at the strategic plan as that roadmap. So the strategic accelerators have had a little bit of a revision. not the content more so, but the order.
Yeah.
We're starting now with student success in all areas. Talk to me about what's exciting for you for this year in student success in all areas.
Well, I mean, the strategic plan, once you're on a board, so I can step back a little bit. It was really fun, genuinely fun to go to some of those meetings with the strategic plan and hear from the community about what their priorities were. The amount that environmentalism, like I am environmentalist, that came up as we talked to the community, honestly shocked me, not because it's not a priority that I have personally, but it just came up. And so it's exciting to have that.
Yes.
Under that understanding of it, student success in all areas, the book we read, Great on Their Behalf, last year as a board, talks about how, go back to my priority as a chair and keeping us on task and being, if you as a board are not answering questions, which are how do we improve and make sure that our children are being successful, then what are you doing? Like
Right.
you're wasting time. I have no idea. And then it's also such a strong foundation for common ground. When I meet with community members, when I meet with board members, when I've had disagreements with board members in the past.
Oh, really?
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
We are blessed in that they are not large philosophical disagreements. They're at the grand scheme of things, small things. And I always start with like, hey, just so we're clear, my priority here is student success. Student success across the board, all areas, and I love the notion of all, but it does a disservice in that we don't often name those areas, which is where you couldn't in a strategic plan. You couldn't list out, honors and special education, but all of those areas matter. Keeping that in the forefront, putting it first is important.
So you mentioned honors. So is that something that's new for us for this year?
Oh man, you only ask questions you already know the answers to right there. It is adding honors options. And I one of the things that I loved about your background was the combination of involvement with both equity work and bringing, Title I schools that needed vast improvement, but also working with honors students, because Decatur is blessed with both. We are small, incredibly diverse. We've got the economically disadvantaged, and we have some geniuses walking around. We're a highly educated community, lots of Emory professors and CDC raising brilliant kids that need to be challenged.
Yes.
And we don't want to lose those kids if they don't feel like they're being challenged or don't have those opportunities. We're not helping them succeed in all areas. A very personal thing is my oldest daughter is in 8th grade, and my wife and I had honors class, and for the first time, right, like honors there, and it like hit us like, oh, like school is, this is serious, and take it on, and it's challenging, and challenges are good.
Exactly. We have the honor of having a national presidential scholar, Gordon Lickstein, our valedictorian from Decatur High School for this year, is now at MIT. And what honor does he not have? He has been named in so many areas. And I think about students that need that level of support, because to be great, it takes everyone to help you to be great. Yeah. And so I'm really excited about that. When we think about building inclusivity and also belonging on our school board, we have thought about strategically how to amplify student voice. So what's new in that area for us this year?
The question makes me think you want me to mention the student school board member that we added. It was not my idea. It was, other members of the board were that there are other states and cities around the country who have school board members on their school board, and so we began the process of talking about legally what could a student school board member do. They can't vote on certain things in Georgia. They can't be involved in legal conversations, but they can have a seat at the table. And we went through that process. And I think that part, while it may not have been my idea, there was a lot of feedback from the board on, we ended up adding a junior member whose job will be easier next year because they've had the ability to learn and do it. And the students now sitting there participating in conversations in a very public way. I had a meeting with both of the members last Thursday. They have a class, and I went in and sat. Really good. Just like the quality of questions was. I've had multiple coffees with people thinking about running for board, or even people on the board, and I told the two of them, I was like, your questions are so much better than any of the questions I've gotten. Like things like, what's the best version of, or what are the attributes of the best version of this? What is the worst thing on this? And I said, well, if your job is just me looking to the left and being like, what do you and the students think? That's bad. But if you are actively pushing us to include certain things in conversations and create agenda items and move it, then you're doing exactly what we had in mind. The other thing we're doing that you're great, that I've seen a lot on, that I don't think was the intention of the question, was the superintendent's student advisory board going out. Both of my daughters came home and asked, hey, should we apply? Should we be? And so that's getting out there to the students and letting them know that if they want to have that direct connection, that you're doing it. So not every student can be on the board, but just that every student knows that there is a board. It's something they can apply for. The fourth grader decided she wanted to wait until her fifth grade year to be on the board. You can't do it multiple year, So just educating students about the ways that we want to hear their perspective.
Exactly. When I think about civic engagement and the way we model that for our students, this is prime example. I know the Superintendent Advisory Council for our students, I call them the littles and the bigs. So my littles are my K through 5, and the way they can talk about variance and budget. And at the end, and I am a teacher, so at the end of whatever session I have with them, I go downstairs and I talk with the parents and I tell them, these are the things that we talked about. They come back the next month and are like, oh my goodness, they would not stop talking about variance and just understanding, Mom, do we have variance in our budget? What are some of the things that are important to us in our home? And that type of making education real, making education a reality for our students that will, help them along being adults. Is a great thing. So I'm excited about that. That's a great segue to the next accelerator.
Okay.
That next accelerator is around the way we cultivate and retain high quality professionals. So what excites you about this year? What excites you about upcoming years in this area?
So let's just talk about cultivating first, because I don't think we talk about that one enough. Some of the training that we offered this summer, some of the AP, we're adding some AP courses this year. We added a few. We're adding AP African American Studies.
Yes. And
correct me on
computer science.
Computer science. And then staff is getting trained, and that's available to someone's got to take it.
Yes.
To get that skill set on to take ownership of a class. That is an amazing opportunity for a teacher. I think if you are a teacher indicator and you want to add a subject like that, you are encouraged. We're excited. Yeah, let's do more AP classes. Take on that mantle. Another version of cultivating is some of the stuff we've done with dyslexia and teaching to read, making some stuff mandatory.
Yes.
Giving some other stuff some opportunity to specialize and learn. I think parents assume that teachers just magically have these skills. I've shared with you that my first grade, ninth grade, I'm teaching ninth grade English, and I was handed the standards and the curriculum and go forth. In Fulton County, and what about classroom management? Is anyone going to talk to me about that? Nope. I didn't have a class on classroom management in grad school when I was getting my EDD stuff. you just have to like learn on the fly. So if as a school system you're not offering those opportunities to people, then those
Right.
teachers are not being cultivated into their best selves.
And I will say we have made strides in that area. We have designed an instructional web portal where you have sample lessons, you have unit plans, links to the standards and the items that are in Inspire at the state. But it's one thing to say, oh, we're going to have honors courses and go forth and do. And it's another thing to plan with the teachers to say, what text do you really want to read? And then that text would be representative of the values of the city schools of Decatur. And I agree wholeheartedly when it comes to mentorship. We are designing mentorship for our new teachers in that 0 to 3. That mentorship pathway and the ways in which they are supported, it's new. And these are the sorts of things that we are doing to cultivate our teachers because that's the way you're going to help grow them.
Yeah. Right. And then once they're grown, the second part of that is retain. We were just getting lots of questions about retention and that sort of stuff. And I read a good bit of literature professionally just about why people change jobs. And we know that no matter what profession you're in, if you don't feel respected by your boss, if you don't feel there's opportunity for advancement, if you are burnt out or if you are not paid enough, those are the reasons, not necessarily in order for why people leave, change jobs. And what we don't want to happen is change professions. I mean, we need more good teachers. And it's not a Decatur thing. It's a state thing. It's a national thing. You can Google any website that tells you such and such county is struggling to fill the classrooms. And so we can kind of go backwards from there. We've got to pay teachers what we can. Budgets, particularly school budgets, are finite. I explained this to a teacher client last week. It's like at home, if I want to add something, there's some wiggle room there. I can, you know what, let's eat out. Did I plan for it? Did I budget for it? No, not really. Hey, let's give teachers a raise. Okay, are we cutting something? Are we taxing more? How are we getting there? It's not an easy thing, but we've got to get there. We've got to make it where my daughter, if she decides she wants to be a teacher, I don't want financial sacrifice to be something she has to take on to make that choice. I think she'd be a fantastic teacher. I think society for the last 60 years has told her, well, then she's going to have to marry rich or be wealthy or side hustle. I mean, just lots of different opportunities. So we've got to fix that. We're working on it. It's a stated point of the board that we're going to be in the top, 25% for the Atlanta metro region. When I do talk to my state representatives, they've got to fix and do something at the state because teachers in Bibb County and Statesboro and Wayne County all need to also get raises.
Exactly.
The moving back up, the feeling respected by your boss and included. One of the things that I'm excited about is for the first time in a long time, we're starting a school year where it's not a new superintendent, it's not a previously led superintendent. 4 or 5 years of relationships is important. I had, I think, 8 bosses in 12 years at Emory, and it was one of the big reasons that I think I remain dissatisfied. I think principals, I think we've got good principals in a lot of these buildings, and we focused on that as a board, on retaining quality leadership, because that's important. If you're going to be happy in your job, you got to feel like who you're responsive to respects you and includes you. You can't just snap your fingers and show up day one and be like, oh yeah, obviously I have a great relationship with you. It's disingenuous. So.
Okay. Well, awesome. So now our last strategic accelerator, the last one is ensuring that our organization as a whole is effective and efficient. What does that mean to you? What does that look like?
That's a good question, because I think we talk about being, excellently organized. Data, having it, being able to point stuff, that's probably number one. Like if we were building a personal budget, I need to know where you are, what's going on, what have we been doing. If it's just, that's just the way it's always been done, or I don't really know the answer to that, that's tough. It's tough to get better or be efficient from that way. I think your approach of zero cost budgeting and starting from, here's your budget, spend it, but like, what did you spend? What did you need is a good way to start that from a financial perspective. I think communication is a big part of an excellent organization. It's tough. I mean, it's tough out there just emailing 4 or 5 things and getting from different sources. And the way education is funded in this state is a Kafka novel more than it makes any sense. It's absolutely ridiculous. The A, the B, the C, and the D. And so that's a big source of very well-intentioned community members that I interact with. Like, what is this? What are we spending? And that sort of stuff. And so an excellent organization is one that shares that data, communicates it well, and earns the trust from people that when that Byzantine structure is something they bang against, their first response is not, well, obviously this is corrupt, but is, let me get to the bottom of this.
Yes. Yes. All right. So all indicator, that's our strategic plan. When we think about all means all, and it's more than just a mantra, how does that equity work interweave itself into all of what we've talked about today?
So equity is incredibly important to me. Someone who looks like me and presents like me, I often forget that maybe I should talk about equity first, because I don't take it for granted. We are blessed on the board to have some amazing champions of equity that allows me to, like I said, play the role of board chair. What equity means to me is the opportunities are not going to be the same for everyone that shows up in our building, but what we want to do is that they have those opportunities when they leave our buildings, when they're seniors. They've had the ability to take those honors classes. They've been challenged. Let's back that up a little bit. They've been given the services that they need, the counseling that they need, the lunches that they need, the food, and if you're missing anyone, then you're not really doing that great of a job. One of my favorite metrics that we measure, it's a popular one, you've seen in a lot of like end of school year data, is asking students, do you have a personal connection with an adult in the building?
Yes.
And I think we need to measure ourselves by the students that say no, and decreasing that number, not the students who, we're always going to say like our valedictorian went to MIT and we got all these students into Georgia Tech and like they're easy, but a real measure of a district is how are the kids that didn't, right? Did they not fall through the cracks? Did you save them a little bit? I mean, we have the Housing Authority indicator is, I think, and I believe, to be one of the best in the state. It's where I would want to live if that became the financial reality for the Herndon family, because they have an amazing leadership. They have a school district that wants to include them, go to them, be the allies that we can. We've got to earn their trust, all sorts of things. So when you say it's more than a mantra, it's like what you're saying is we're not just saying all means all. Right. We're looking for the places where they're not. We're showing our warts, which is the hard part that a lot of school districts, a lot of private schools don't even have to show those warts. And here in Decatur, we're like, here's the data. We have not been doing a good job. And we're not just going to say, well, it's because they're poor. Oh, it's because historically marginalized, and that's not our fault. That's lazy. Right. The correct answer is, regardless of how we got here, what are we doing this year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, to overcome those barriers for everyone? Yes, I agree. I know from a secondary point of view for our high schoolers, we now have a program, One Goal, that
targets the students, not that are going, we know that will go to MIT or Georgia Tech or UGA, but our students that are, I'm wondering what's for me next.
Right.
How can I find that trusted adult, have that person on staff, and shepherd me through this year as a senior and as a junior to ensure when I hand them that diploma and you shake their hand, that they are ready to engage in the real world. That is the definition of equity, is providing that. And I'm excited about also the plans we're working on around social emotional learning and what that will mean for us to wrap our arms around the students and their needs, and the robust partnerships with the Decatur Housing Authority. It's true. I make it a point, of course, to have listening sessions at the schools and virtually, but I also have one at Decatur Housing Authority and the Community Resource Center. You don't have to come to me. I will go to you because I need to hear what your needs are so that all can truly mean all.
Yeah.
Well, Chair Herndon, we've covered a lot of information today.
Yeah.
But it's been good. It's been great. I am so thankful for your perspective. I'm so thankful for your leadership as the chair of the board, for one last year and now for this year. Your leadership is so important to the city schools of Decatur, and your leadership also is very important for me. So thank you for what you do every single day, and know that in the city schools of Decatur, all means all, and it's more than just a mantra.
Thank you. It was good being here and chatting and talking through all this stuff.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That is Words with Dr. Whitaker. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we look forward to you tuning in the future.